Hello, you're listening to Shoot the Hostage. My name's Sarah, and together with my partner Dan, we are a movie podcast where we talk about 8 different films per season based around a specific theme. Now, if you're hearing my voice, that means it's my choice of theme this season. But before we get stuck in, I do want to mention we get quite spoilery, so please bear that in mind. We don't want to ruin the film for you, so if you haven't seen it, maybe go away and then come back. If you like what you hear and you would like to help us out, there are a number of ways you can do that. The absolute easiest one is to just recommend us to a friend. If you want to go the extra mile, a 5-star review on Spotify would be hugely appreciated. A review on your podcast player of choice would also be hugely helpful. And if you really, really want to help us, we've got a Patreon, which is £3 a month, and you get access to a ton of extra content in the form of reviews of new cinema releases, new streaming releases. You get to see the lineup of the season ahead of time, and we do a wrap show at the end of every season. But all of that aside, I just want to say thank you for listening, and let's get stuck in.
Okay, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Oh no.
And that bone is called Bad Boy Bubby. Bobby?
Bubby!
Bubby. Fucking hell. Bubby. He said it a million times in the movie.
Yeah. Bubby.
And Pop is also Pop.
Pop.
Yeah.
Pop.
So, this is your season. I mean, if you didn't know it already, I think you could take a look at the lineup and be pretty certain that it's your season, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
would
even
say so.
Even you commented the other day. You were like, "Oh, your season, The Warriors, Big Trouble in Little China, lots of fun." And now we're doing an Australian grimy comedy drama,
Dark comedy,
dark
comedy, horror. I don't even know. It sort of it evades categorization.
This is maybe the cultiest of cult films that we've covered so far.
So far, yeah.
I hadn't heard of this until you brought it up.
Unsurprising.
And I'm sure a lot of people have, a lot of movie fans. If you listen to movie podcasts, you probably have heard of this movie and may have even seen it. Obviously, at the top, we do a little sweary warning, don't we? We do a little sweary warning and say we're going to spoil the movie. But I'm going to add to that as well that some of the themes we might talk about, that
bit triggering.
Some of the things that happen in this movie. Yeah, there's some controversial shit that happens in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've had your warning.
On your own heads be it.
Yeah. You made me watch this the other day.
I did. Last night.
Yeah, it was last night. God, it feels like ages ago. It's been sitting in my brain for almost 24 hours.
Are you excited to expunge it?
I am excited to. I'm in a way. I'm glad that we didn't watch it earlier.
Okay.
So I would have to sit with it for like 3 or 4 days. What I'm going to say about the film, what I think about it. I've had 24 hours. And it's just been sort of, I've been working, but it's been low level, sort of hanging in my brain.
Yeah.
Just certain images, thank you again, keep flashing into my brain. Just remind me going, oh, you watched that film, didn't you, last night?
But I think that's what's so great about it. It's certainly memorable.
Yes, it is memorable. And we'll get into, I guess, what our thoughts and feelings on it are.
Sure.
I guess my first question is for you. Sarah, how did you happen upon Bad Boy Bubby? How the fuck did you... Wait, who told you about this? I know you're still their friend.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an ex who's now my best friend.
Right.
It's all his fault.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. You know him.
Yeah, I do.
Makes
know
perfect sense.
Yeah, now everything's just fallen into place in my brain. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
And to add to that, he was once in Australia in the same bar as Nicholas Hope.
Was he really?
Yeah, but he was with a bunch of other people, so he was too scared to approach him.
You should have just called him across the bar.
Start singing Bad Boy Bubby blues at him.
I bet he gets that all the time.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, there's 17 people that have seen this movie.
It's weird though. It's like you say, it's a cult film.
Yeah.
It's actually, I wouldn't say it's widely seen, definitely not, but it's beloved.
Like I said, I hadn't heard of it, and there's loads of stuff that I haven't heard of, so that's not really that surprising.
Yeah.
Had I known about it, I probably wouldn't have watched it anyway. if I'm being honest.
Okay.
There are certain things that I'm just like, I don't need to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe a slight spoiler here, but in this case, I am glad that I've watched this one.
Oh.
It does. I'm not saying whether I liked it or not.
Okay.
I'm not giving that away yet. But I feel like it's something that I have seen.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We'll come back to that. We'll revisit that.
Okay.
Put a pin in it till the end.
Right.
Interesting.
So you were introduced to this by Matt.
Yep.
And you've just loved it ever since. You watch it every Christmas day. You wake up in the morning and you're like, Bad Boy Bubby.
No, this is only the second or third time I've ever seen it.
That was going to be my follow-up question.
Yeah.
How many times have you seen this and why?
Why have I watched it more than once,
Yes.
you mean? I think it's excellent. I think it's unlike anything else that I've ever seen.
That's certainly true. It's not like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, is it?
It's definitely not, no. I don't know. I'm definitely different to you in that I'm quite drawn to challenging films.
Mm.
The one that always springs to mind is Climax.
Gasper, no way.
Yeah. I know how much he hated that, but I don't know. I'm drawn to it. I don't know why. I like films that are an experience.
Yeah, I can understand that. Very few films sort of make you or give you like an extreme reaction, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you consume as many as we do.
Exactly.
So to get something that sort of gets under your skin is quite a novelty these days. So
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I understand it. But from my perspective, I don't want that novelty feeling to be, I want to jump off a bridge now. It's like that's how Climax made me feel. I couldn't wait for that movie to end.
I guess I'm not as affected viscerally as you are by these sorts of films.
I guess so.
They don't necessarily depress me or bum me out.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, that was a difficult watch. I feel like I need to have a nap for a little bit, lie in a dark room maybe.
Yep.
And then I'm fine. Brush it off.
See, all I wanted to do last night was put on some Roadrunner cartoons and root for Wile E. Coyote for the millionth time.
So you needed brain bleach.
I did.
I
needed some brain bleach
Okay.
desperately.
How would you synopsize this?
What? Without swearing?
No, you can swear. It's not an official synopsis.
God, I hope this doesn't become a recurring segment. I guess a 35-year-old man lives with his mother, and he thinks that there's been a big gas explosion outside or something. I don't know how I would describe this.
It's funny.
I haven't got the words.
I saw my favourite description of this film earlier when I was doing some research. I think it was on Letterboxd. Somebody called it like a fucked up Australian Forrest Gump.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I wonder if Zemeckis saw this and was like, "I've got an idea. Let's do this, but Americanize
But
it.
wholesome.
Yeah, and make it Tom Hanks."
And he's a little bit better at communicating.
Yeah.
But equally shit hair, you could argue.
Yes, yeah, the hairstyles in this movie are not anything to write home about, certainly.
No. It's very dated. I will say that. In terms of style, it's very dated.
Mm.
But I think the story sort of transcends the period that it was made. Because this is like, what, 30 years old now?
Yep.
Almost. 1993.
Yep.
There's the accountant.
I've been doing maths all day. I don't want
maths.
to do a maths when I'm doing this thing that we enjoy.
That's fair enough.
But 31 years.
Yeah. So it's getting on, and it's micro budget. It was made for next to nothing.
I thought that, but then I read that the budget was 800,000 Australian dollars, which is about 600,000 US. Obviously, account for inflation 30 years later, but
that's still not a lot.
It's not huge.
That's a small budget indie film.
It's not huge, but it's not nothing. It's not 10 grand.
It's not Blair Witch money,
or even Cube. Cube was made for less money than this, which really surprised me.
Okay, what that you think Bad Boy Bubby cost a lot less?
Yeah.
Okay.
What felt like the first 2 hours, he was just in that little apartment.
So let's talk about the beginning then, because that is the most unpleasant part of the film, but it's a necessary evil, I think.
Okay.
So how did that make you feel?
I said to you last night while we were watching it, I think you got up and you did a pause because you need to go to the bathroom.
Always.
Honestly, I thought that the film was ending about 20 minutes before that. I thought, well, you can probably hold it because it's going to be finished soon. But there was still 40 minutes left. So I think that first act in the apartment, slum, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
that honestly, like, I'm not exaggerating, it honestly felt like an hour to me.
Wow.
And I guess it must have been half that, right? It must have...
Like half an hour?
Yeah. So essentially it's the first act of the movie and lays the groundwork for everything to come.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, like, it just went on forever. I think because it was so uncomfortable.
But I think that's it though, isn't it? It's sort of testament to how unbearable it is.
Yeah.
You're forced, I mean, through a number of filmmaking decisions, some of which were actually quite genius.
Yeah.
You are sort of forced into Bobby's point of view.
Yeah.
Obviously, most notably that he had binaural microphones hidden in his wig on either side of his head. So the sound that was recorded, I think it becomes way more apparent when he leaves the house. But yeah, everything that you're hearing is what he hears.
So the sound is from his perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't, well, obviously I didn't notice that. I didn't pick up on it. I picked up on that I couldn't hear everything that was being said.
Yeah.
And we had to do a little volume up on the TV a few times. So I just thought it was, low budget indie film, probably didn't record the sound great, but it works.
Yeah.
I think there's a few tricks that they used. I wouldn't even say tricks. I'll just say like you used the perfect word yesterday, experimental.
Oh yeah.
There's a few things
it's absolutely an experimental movie.
Yeah. And some things that maybe shouldn't work, but in this kind of story that they're telling, it does all sort of come together and make you feel a thing.
Yeah.
And for that, I applaud it. But it is incredibly uncomfortable. And I guess that's the point. I think in that first act was really tricky to get through because of the things that are happening to Bubby.
Yeah, you don't have to be vague. We've given the trigger warning.
Yeah.
I mean, he hangs dong within like 30 seconds of the film starting. You're clued into what kind of a film this is going to be very, very quickly. Yeah,
no doubt. But it's not just the things that happen in the apartment. It's also the way that it's shot.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. I can't remember how it was shot, but on reflection, it feels like the first act was shot in black and white. There's almost no colour, right?
It's very sort of, it's very muted.
Very muted, yeah. And that's obviously by design, because the whole point is he's in the apartment. This is his entire world. It's all he's ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And when you want that difference from when he goes into the apartment, into the outside world, and everything's full of colour and sounds and stuff, and tastes, pizza. But yeah, I think it's not just the stuff that happened in that first part. It's also the way that it's shot. That it's just like, oh, this is brutal.
It's oppressive.
Oppressive is a great word to use. Yeah. And we watched an interview, didn't we, with director?
Rolf de Heer.
Rolf de Heer, thank you. And he was saying that he had an idea to shoot it in a different aspect ratio, right? But he was watching it, and he said it was too much.
Yeah,
it was just too much to bear. When he was describing it, I was thinking that's very interesting. But I can see why he didn't. Yeah, it's incredibly. Oh, it's just difficult to get through that first act. It went on forever.
Yeah, it's horrendous. It's horrendous. Did you feel for Bobby as a character? Did it sort of elicit sympathy or empathy for him?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course it did. And he's this guy that's been in this apartment for 35 years, doesn't know, he knows the outside world exists, presumably.
But his mum always leaves wearing a gas mask, so he's under the impression that, you can't breathe out there. So it's in his best interests to stay put. Yeah,
he's been sold a lie, and she's using that lie, amongst other things, to control him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt hugely sympathetic for him. It's not his fault. Certain things happen to him. Obviously, there are things that he does that shouldn't be doing that.
No.
But it's interesting that it's exploring, for me, it's exploring why people might do the things that they do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's saying necessarily this, but when the film finished yesterday, I said, is he good or is he bad? And I was sort of joking about that. Because I don't think it's really saying either thing. I think it's just saying, look, circumstances can often dictate what decisions you make.
Yeah.
and how where you're born and how you're brought up is everything.
Yeah.
It's nature and nurture, obviously.
I was going to say, I think he basically had nature and nurture working against him. So the fact that the film plays out as it does is sort of a minor miracle, that he's sort of gifted something of a happy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's obviously a very strange dynamic between him and his mother.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the incest.
Okay.
I must admit, like when I guess they sort of alluded to it quite early on in the film when she's just having a sponge bath in front of him, I guess. And I'm thinking, this is not normal.
Boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought this is weird. And obviously Nicholas Hope has got kind of a weird, childish kind of grin and curiosity look about him. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is, please, we're not going down this road, are we? And then, yeah, we
went there.
We go down the incest road.
Yeah.
And it's repulsive. And he doesn't know any better. She is obviously controlling him. What is her reason for it? Is it just because she wants to control him? Is it because that he reminds her of her ex who comes back into it later? Or like what's the deal with her? Is
Personally,
she just insane?
I think all of the above.
Yeah.
Little of column A, little of column B.
Okay.
I think she's a very fucked up individual, clearly, and she sort of sees Bobby as a bit of a pop stand-in. And I don't know, I get the impression she's maybe not had the most straightforward life. And also there is that element of, like, not to get super heavy or anything, but people who suffer that kind of abuse can, I was going to say often, I don't know how often, I don't know statistics, but can go on to sort of perpetuate that kind of abuse onto other people. So maybe that's her story, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe everybody's a victim of a fashion.
Well, I think that's kind of what this is exploring, isn't it? Like, I would assume that she had endured some kind of terrible abuse.
The fact that she thinks this is normal, that this is her every day, that's insane. Just feeding her 35-year-old toddler mushed up bread and milk. Milky sugar bread.
And he loved it.
What is it with Australians putting sugar on bread? That's a thing.
Is it an Australian thing?
Yeah, like fairy bread is a thing, right?
I don't know what's that.
Bread with like hundreds and thousands on it. Sprinkles.
Of money?
Huh?
Of money?
No. Sprinkles.
What sprinkles of
like
what?
Little sugar confetti thing that you put on cakes.
Sugar?
Hundreds and thousands. You know what? Never mind. Anyway, we're not here to debate the intricacies of fairy bread. I
thought that I've done very little research on this, full disclosure, but the actor who played Bubby's mum, I did note a few times where, I don't know, she almost did this thing where she was looking quite disconnected, but I could see that her brain was working. What lie do I need to tell next to manipulate this kid into doing what I want? Full-grown man,
yeah,
but essentially a child for all intensive purposes.
Intense and purposes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's essentially a child. But I could see she had a look on her face, like I could sort of see. Maybe it's what I was bringing to it, but I could sort of see the cogs turning in her brain.
Yeah.
Like whenever he asked a question, I could see her sitting there going, "Oh fuck! Now I need to come up with another lie to carry on this thing, this control."
What I think is really interesting, as somebody, I'm not going to go through my religious upbringing again because I've talked about that on the podcast before, but
ad nauseum.
All right, mine's my religious upbringing. Yours is RoboCop.
Yeah,
let's
true.
agree on that.
Paul Verhoeven is my Jesus.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that this film is quite anti-religion.
Agreed.
And I find it really interesting that his mum sort of uses the Catholic kind of honesty through paranoia. Like when she says to him, you know, you have to sit here at the table, don't move until I get back. God will know, Jesus will know, and he'll beat you senseless or something. And it works. And then Pop comes back and he's wearing a dog collar, priest's dog collar. And so knowing how rife abuse is in the Catholic Church, maybe that plays into it. Maybe that's to do with the perpetuation of the abuse on Bobby. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, when he turned up in that dog collar, I did think, oh, well, this is not going to get any better, is it? Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure that it's necessarily saying anything like religion is bad. I mean, maybe it is, but it's just my point of view. But more the people that use these things for their own advantage.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't strike me as a particularly altruistic person, I'll go out on a limb.
Yeah. Safe to say.
So I would assume that the only reason, if he was even really a practicing priest, maybe he was just running a scam or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he was just doing it so he gets a free coffee at the tea shop or something.
Do priests get a free coffee?
What?
Do priests get a free coffee?
I don't know. Like, when I was saying that, I was just thinking, maybe they will get free shit,
Are you thinking about your exorcist priest costume that's in the cupboard?
Yeah.
You're going to go score us some free coffee. Yeah, I find that really interesting. And then obviously you've got, again, to touch on like nature versus nurture, he's then perpetuating the abuse as well, because Bubby does exactly what his mother does to him, to the cat.
Yeah. Interesting. Like, he's something you touched on earlier. He's passing it on. Like, the cat could essentially be his kid, and obviously later on in the film he says, "I'm a pop to cat now."
Yeah.
So that is interesting. Yeah, that's
learned behavior,
passing it on. Yeah.
I think also coupled with that is his obvious developmental difficulties. Because, I mean, I think the average person who'd grown up in that environment for 35 years would be a bit stunted.
Yeah. Well,
no books to read, nothing. Like, you'd be screwed. But I also think there's more at play. And I know, it's funny, this is the second of 3 films this season where I'm going to touch on this, but apparently Nicholas Hope did sort of study autistic people for his portrayal of Bubby, but I couldn't find anything to suggest that Rolf de Heer had intended to write the character as autistic. But he's definitely developmentally stunted, shall we say.
It was probably a vague note in the script.
Maybe, yeah.
And then maybe not. Maybe Nicholas Hope just brought that to the table himself. I don't know.
But the echolalia definitely fits. Everything he hears, he mimics. And that's a big autistic thing.
Yeah.
As you well know. When you say random words around the house and I can't help but repeat them.
Yeah, it's a fun game. That I have
for you.
Yeah.
Until I realise that's what you're doing. Oh dear. But yeah, he's doing exactly what a lot of bullied people do and paying it forward.
Yeah. Well, you mean with the cat stuff?
Yeah, to something weaker, smaller and weaker.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about the cat stuff.
Yeah, we were going to get to it. Don't worry. I think, it goes back to that, him being a child. I do have sympathy for him. There's stuff actions that he takes that I fucking hate, but you can sort of see the journey to it and how he's got there. And
he's very gullible as well, because obviously he is taunting the cat and causing it distress and harm, which is horrible to watch.
Really difficult to watch, yeah.
Really awful, especially knowing the real life story behind it. Like, Australia had a really, I don't know if maybe still has a really bad feral cat problem. And when they're caught, they are put down by vets.
Yeah.
So basically they had this feral cat and it was put down by a vet so that they could use its corpse effectively as cling wrap cat.
Yeah.
Which is just hideous, horrible.
Very unpleasant. Yeah, I mean...
But again, it's sort of using what his mum's taught him.
Yeah.
Because he says, like, how come cat don't need gas masks?
But this is it, isn't it? What he's done to those animals, the character, putting aside the production for a second, the character, he doesn't know that he's going to kill the cat. That's not what he's intending to do.
Well, yeah, because his mum says the cat doesn't need to breathe.
Precisely.
Doesn't breathe. So him cutting off its oxygen doesn't mean death to him. And also, I don't think he really understands the permanence of death either.
I doubt he does. I doubt he understands much of anything.
Yeah.
So, like, it's certainly all the stuff that happens in the first act of the movie. I fucking hate seeing it. But it's like, you don't know anything. And, it's not really your fault. Interesting. But, I mean, I guess the production really shouldn't have been taunting a cat like that, right?
No.
Are we going to have a discussion about is the art worth it?
I don't believe so.
Agreed.
I think
that was a short discussion, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't think so.
There are other ways to do this, right?
Yeah, like when I was thinking of like comparisons, stuff that came to mind was the obvious ones like Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
Horrific animal abuse. Necromantic There's
Oh,
some
has that got animal?
not nice stuff.
Animal
Yeah,
stuff,
the
is it?
rabbit and
Okay.
another cat as well. But that's the cat thing. I think is very obviously fake. But the rabbit thing is a real rabbit that's killed and skinned. What's the other one? Oh, it's another Australian film. Oh, Wake in Fright.
Okay.
Yeah, the Aussies have a bit of a weird history with animals because there's an extended sequence for Wake in Fright. Spoilers here of a kangaroo culling. And they're just sort of driving. The production followed professionals of what I'm unsure that were just kind of driving around and shooting kangaroos, and it was shown in pretty gruesome detail. And it felt like it went on for 20 minutes. But I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it elevates the art. No,
I don't think it does either. And I just think
there are ways to imply it.
There are ways to. I mean, I guess this film is fucking dark enough. You can do something. You can maybe not show it, or you can use, I don't know, budget. Obviously, you can't use puppets or whatever. But I feel like there could have been a more creative way to show that. And the director's justification was, well, they fucking kill these cats anyway. It's like, yeah,
I didn't like that.
No, it's a bit of a cop out, I think.
Yeah, he said it was humanely killed, but he didn't. He conveniently neglected to mention the torture it went through before it was humanely, quote unquote, killed.
Yeah. And also, you know, I mean, it's not a straightforward argument, really, because, you know, whenever you see at the end of movies, no animals were harmed during making this movie, I'm thinking, yeah, what about fucking catering? Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of, it's baked into everything.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, when do we accept it and when do we not accept it? It's not really that straightforward, if you're being honest.
True. I don't like that. Coming back to Cannibal Holocaust, Ruggero Deodato obviously re-edited the film in later years and put out a version with a lot of the animal torture and killing truncated or removed completely. But I don't understand. It wasn't called for.
Yeah.
It's never called for.
I just remembered one. I just remembered Apocalypse Now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Which I completely forgot about. But I remember watching that and hearing a very similar excuse for that as well. They were going to kill the cows anyway. And I remember at the time thinking, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, well, fine. We may as well use that death to create a piece of art. But I don't know, since a couple of years since having that thought, I just kind of think, I don't know, maybe can we adopt the cow?
I'd love to adopt a cow.
It's not very practical. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it?
It is tricky. I don't think the film would have suffered any by removing that or filming it in such a way that they disguised that it wasn't really a real cat. Or there are ways to get around it.
I think the cat itself is actually really necessary to the story.
Yeah,
because that's, you know, he's essentially growing up throughout the film and becomes, as he says, a pop himself to Cat. So I think the character of Cat is necessary. But we could have just
there would have been like creative ways to film it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the most creative films I've seen in a long fucking time. So like, come on, there must be a way around this.
Yeah, think on your feet.
Yeah. Anyway, is anyone fucking sick of hearing a couple of vegans blate on about animal cruelty in films?
I'm sure most people have switched off by now.
Probably.
But for those of you that haven't, let's move on.
You've got to mention it, haven't you, in this film? It's a
it's
controversial
unavoidable
movie for so many fucking reasons.
But I don't think what we're saying is controversial at all. I think even non-vegans would absolutely balk at seeing what happens to the cat in this movie.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. So, Pop turns up and becomes a very disruptive presence in Bubby's life, straight out of the gate. Something that kind of struck me was the way in which Pop was filmed. Like one of the first scenes when he sat at the table kind of talking and the camera sort of drifts down to his mouth and mostly stays there.
Yeah.
What did you think about that? Because I had a couple of theories.
I think for me, it's just entire, like you mentioned, with the microphones in his wig, the way that the camera is used, especially when he gets outside. This entire film is shot from Bubby's perspective. You are with Bubby. And I think he's essentially, what that's telling you is that he's studying him. He's like you say, he mimics people, and again later he does mimic Pop,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's simply him seeing this new person, and he's fascinated by this person.
Yeah.
There's a new lump of meat in this house.
It's the second human he's ever met.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't know he had a father.
Wow, fucking, there's someone else alive?
Yeah.
How are you breathing? But spoilers, doesn't breathe for very long. Yeah, so he's just studying him, I guess. And again, that sort of felt a bit uncomfortable just because close up of mouths. Ugh.
Yeah,
Gross.
it's not fun to look at.
No.
At least he wasn't eating.
True.
That would have been
true.
10 times worse. But yeah, I agree with that. And additionally, I thought perhaps if the character is autistic coded, maybe that was his way of avoiding eye contact.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That was something that occurred to me last night.
Yeah, I like that take. That also fits. I think it's funny because, like you say, he's only the second ever human that he has met.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't notice this in the film, but again, going back to what we watched the director do a talking head thing on the DVD, and he mentioned about not many people have noticed, but that first act in the apartment when Pop comes in, they actually make the apartment slightly bigger because Bubby's worldview is just doubled. Like he knows twice the amount of people that he used to know.
I'll be honest, I didn't notice that. Did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't notice it, and I think that's good. I think that's a good thing. I think subconsciously I probably picked up on it. Like there's a lot of things that happen in this film: the sound, the camera, the way it's shot, the way it looks, the color, which I didn't notice at the time, but just thinking about it today, noticing the lack of color in the first act, and I think it just employs a lot of these things very
subtly. Yeah. Which is like subtle is a strange word to use in reference to this film, but
it is, isn't it? It's a really odd film. It's like a mix of incredibly subtle experimental filmmaking and just a bunch of shit that you just never want to see again, except in your case when you watch it 3 fucking times.
Well, I make no excuses. I'm a bit tapped in the head. What can I say?
Yeah, it's telling me.
I also really enjoyed the fact that I think they were using a wide angle lens. Like it was quite distorted on the edges.
Yeah.
And that changed when Bobby left the apartment as well. Now I hate it. Obviously, I think sometimes that's used because if you're in a really tight space, it's used out of necessity because you need to sort of get as much as you can in the frame.
Yeah.
But I feel like here it really adds to that kind of claustrophobic nightmare feel.
Yeah.
Because it's awful. And it is truly claustrophobic. Like putting yourself in his shoes and imagining being trapped in that, as you say, hovel. Don't even know what to call it. Like 2 rooms.
Fucking grotesque apartment. Just, nothing else. That's your entire world for
windowless
35
box.
fucking years.
Yeah.
You can't begin to imagine what that's like.
No.
Yeah.
Awful. But they do a really good job of portraying how he might feel, I think. And then obviously he becomes the cling wrap killer.
Yeah. Sort of. Is it by accident?
I don't think it's by accident.
It's not, is it? Because I think the cat is by accident.
Yeah,
like
but
he
after
enjoys...
what happens to the cat, he understands what wrapping somebody's face in cling film would do, I think.
Yeah, because he wraps the cat and he's, oh shit, the cat must have breathed.
Yeah.
So, but Mum said that they didn't breathe. So what's going on there? And he's starting to put the pieces together, and he hates Pop that's come in and taken his place.
Yeah.
He's jealous of him. He
sees him as a threat.
He's been studying him. He decides to completely just imitate him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's uncomfortable, but pretty fucking funny.
There are so many moments in this film that are genuinely laugh out loud funny, I think.
I'm so glad you said that, because there's stuff that I'm like, I was laughing, but like in some ways just the absurdity of it.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's absolutely intentional.
Yeah.
It's often described as a dark comedy.
He's smearing the
treacle ? On his face.
So jarred, I dropped my glasses. Yeah, it's like a hot treacle. I was thinking, is that cool enough? You're not going to burn yourself, Bubby. Burn yourself, Bubby. Yeah, he smears that on his face, and then he's got, I guess he's cut his hair off.
He gives himself like the world's worst home mullet.
Right, okay. Oh, movies with mullets. There's another one. Yeah, he puts the beard on his face on the maple syrup. Just, it's repeating the scenes of this film just is not helping. Yeah, so he's imitating his dad, and then because I guess he thinks that he's going to win his mother around by doing so, and they have a huge fight. He gets kicked out, and then he just goes a bit crazy and decides to kill them with the cling film, as you say.
He goes a bit Lenny. Is that ableist to say that?
Lenny
from Of Mice and Men.
Right. Okay. John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Malkovich.
Malkovich.
Not Gary Sinise.
Yeah.
So
and then he's free.
Well, I was just going to say, actually, so he kills his mother and he kills his father with the cling film.
Yep.
He stays in the apartment for a little bit.
Yeah.
He's getting quite hungry because he's eating bugs.
Oh, God, that was a real cockroach, you know?
Doesn't surprise me.
Ugh.
If it's good enough for Cage, it's good enough for Hope. He is eating cockroaches, so I'm thinking, okay, he's pretty hungry. He's obviously not got access to bread and sugar anymore. He's having to
And
eat
milk.
cockroaches and milk. Yeah, no, yeah, his mother died. Sorry.
Yuck. Yuck.
Sorry. I'm not going to cut that. No, but I was thinking, how long was he in that apartment? How long did he stay in there for?
With the corpses?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something about this film that I can't figure out. Is exactly what the time frame is.
I don't think there's an exact answer, but I think it's interesting to think about because...
Yeah, besides the very obvious time jump of a few years right at the end.
Yeah.
It's unclear.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agreed. I don't think you know at any point during this film how much time exactly has passed, but
No.
I figured he's hungry enough that he's eating a cockroach. But then again, maybe he just does that.
Maybe
Maybe
that's a delicacy in the hovel.
Well, yeah,
his mum's convinced him that
it's the only protein that he gets, I guess.
Yeah.
And maybe he's seen Cat do it as well. Do Cat eat cockroach?
I think he tried to feed a cockroach to the cat at one point.
Okay.
Also, can we talk about this for a second?
Oh, what?
Well, you're just dreading it every time I bring up a new point. Oh God, what are we gonna have to talk about now? No, the logistics of Bubby, in that he would have like scurvy, brittle bones, huge vitamin D deficiencies.
Right.
Like he would have like muscle wasting. This is not a realistic movie. But
No.
that is like so in the realms of fantasy that he would be a healthy 35-year-old.
Do you know what's concerning to me is that your biggest concern about this movie is his nutrition.
Well, I was concerned, yeah.
That's the thing we want to talk about, is
yeah.
it? Okay. We've done
He
the
was
incest.
not getting his 5 a day.
We've done the animal cruelty.
Yeah.
Why isn't he eating a load of bananas?
Yeah. Potassium.
Yeah. No, agreed. Like I said, probably getting a lot of protein from bugs around the house. Gets enough energy from the sugar and probably, I don't know. I don't know what happens when you feed a human bread and sugar for 35 years.
Not this.
No.
Or maybe exactly this. Who knows?
Who knows?
Nobody's ever done that experiment.
No, and nobody ever should either.
No, we don't advise it. So
he's out. We're out of the apartment now.
He's out of the apartment.
Fuck for that.
So this is where this film ceases to fit into my season theme.
Well, I was gonna. Yeah, it was curious because I was gonna ask you, like, he is trapped for a bit.
Yeah.
And then he's not. But as
that counts. He's trapped for half an hour.
Yeah.
And then he's imprisoned later on.
Yeah, true. He's imprisoned. Yeah. But I guess, like, as with many of these films, I feel like you could argue that he's trapped in his own kind of mind, the infrastructure that his mother has given him, psychologically speaking. He's trapped within those boundaries.
He's trapped in the limitations of his own psyche.
There you go. Explained it. There you go. You're welcome. No, that was good. I think I was. Do you know what I felt? When he got out, I was so fucking relieved that he got out.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I wanted the character to get out. I don't really know if I did or not. I felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
But there was part of me that's like, should he be in society? He's murdering people. Like, it's not very clear.
It's not just like willy-nilly though.
But what do you mean?
There were 2 people that arguably deserved it.
Listen, yeah, I'm not talking about the morality of it. I just mean, if someone else upsets him, who's to say that he doesn't do it again?
Look, I was rooting for him.
Okay, fair enough. But I was relieved to just get out of the fucking apartment for my
Yeah.
own sake. Just now I feel like the whole movie opened up after that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we spoke about the other day that he director employed, was it 32?
32 different DOPs, yeah.
Yep. So 32 cinematographers, which is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And
well,
that was...
he said initially they were talking about it, but then from a pragmatic point of view, it became the obvious choice because they were worried that they wouldn't be able to use the same crew when they went from place to place. So they decided the easiest thing to do would just be to hire a different crew.
Yeah.
For each place. So yeah, that, again, with the subtlety, there are very subtle differences between each place that Bobby ends up.
Yeah. And I think that entirely works for this film. It was obviously not something that was kind of happened upon by accident, I guess, because as you say, I think he mentioned it was like 2-year production or something.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, low budget, you can't employ crew for 2 years. You just got to get them when you need them and then let them go. And then by that time, they're probably not available and you move to a new crew, new location, as you say. But it works because it's everything that he is experiencing is all his perspective, as we say. So you want there to be a really impactful images and different sort of ways of shooting things, because you imagine like a child, like when you were a kid and you're walking through the forest or looking at a pond and you're fascinated by the stuff that you're seeing because you haven't seen this shit before.
Everything is new.
And that's what he is. He's a kid. He's experiencing this new world. So he's like really looking at everything. Like we as adults don't really notice the subtle differences in things.
Yeah.
We just sort of, like as zombies, just sort of float through and listen to our podcasts and try and avoid eye contact with people.
That might just be us.
It might just be, yeah. No, I'm not doing a stop and chat. Let's avoid eye contact. Yeah, so it's like, I think to have all of the different creatives bring their own thing to it really works, because you're thinking, well, he's noticing all of these incredible things for the first time, and they really stand out to him. And I think particularly some of the camera work, I just thought was just brilliant. Like there was some handheld stuff where it's following him around and it's sort of going around his body, and then it's coming out and it's revealing a tree and then another person. And I just thought the fluidity of certain uses of the camera was brilliant. It really immersed me. And there's another one later on where they did a really slow zoom.
Oh, I love that. We're
about
definitely going to talk about that.
Why you should kill God. He's read Nietzsche.
Yeah. I think one of my favourite moments was his first time in daylight, and the camera's sort of oscillating between two sort of extreme Dutch angles. And it really shows how disorienting it must be for him. Like, not only is this his first time in the world, he was stuck in this windowless room with horrible artificial lighting and then straight out into darkness. How does he know that the world isn't always darkness?
Yeah, for all he knows, everything's catching on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this big yellow hot thing in the sky and I don't know what it is. It's just really scary.
So I loved that technique.
Yeah.
It's just sort of making you feel really off kilter. Yeah, and the first people he encounters are a bunch of Salvation Army carolers.
That's not the first people he encounters.
Oh no,
Get the bloody road.
Yeah.
Don't repeat the rest of that sentence.
No, don't do that.
I won't.
It is a sentence that he repeats further into the film. Well, pretty much all of the dialogue he repeats
Everything
at some
is repeated.
point. Yeah,
but it's really enjoyable for that. It feels like it's an obvious thing.
Nicholas Hope is so good at that mimicry, though.
He's fucking phenomenal in this movie. Like, if you get nothing else from this, you can't argue that he's great.
Yeah.
For this.
What a performance.
Yeah. Getting big Doug Bradley vibes from him, by the way.
Oh, I can see that.
I could see him as a pinhead, but I think that ship has sailed, sadly.
Yeah. They're probably about the same age, actually.
Yeah. And also, we've got a fantastic pinhead now, Jamie Clayton. We want another fucking Hellraiser movie, please. What are we talking about? I do this. This happens.
Your brain's just gone off on a wander.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about Bobby's mimicry and the echolalia.
Yeah. Is that what it means?
Yeah, just repeating things, repetition. either in your head or out loud. In his case, out loud.
That happens to me a lot, you know.
Oh, funny
Is
that.
it not? No, I know. It's a conversation again. But like, is that not normal then?
No, not.
Like, a song will just repeat over and over in your head.
Is it the whole song or the part of a song?
No, it's a part of a song. It's maybe the way a word is said. It's the twang in which it's delivered.
Yeah, that's a big neurodivergent thing. I hate to tell you.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it does sort of add fuel to that theory about Bubby. But yeah, so he gets yelled at in the street, but then he meets some Salvation Army people
of course, and
who are singing at nothing and no one.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, what are they? Why is Salvation Army?
Not a clue.
That's weird, you know. Like, there's lots about this film that's weird.
This is what you're picking up on.
Yeah, no, it was just one of those things, and I was thinking, what? Okay, this is interesting. Like, he is experiencing this world for the first time. He decides to touch a man on the chest, and I think, oh God, I know what's coming.
And two ladies.
Yeah,
and the first of many, many, many gropes.
First of many, many gropes. But the thing that I didn't understand is why everyone just seems to be okay with it.
It was the 90s. I've got no idea. People don't always respond the way that you expect them to in this film.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it was a weird one. And then he does a bit of groping on the Salvation Army people, and then they're like, "Come for dinner with us. Let's go
buy
for
a
a meal."
pizza. Yeah. I really loved that that scene where they enter the pizzeria. Yeah, which is the first time we see Angel, by the way.
Is Angel in that scene?
She's at a different table.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Does he notice her?
Huh?
Does he notice her?
No. She's there a few times throughout the film before he actually meets her. But yeah, and that's when the binaural microphones are really sort of at their best, and it really sort of demonstrates a brilliant approximation of sensory overwhelm.
Yeah.
Because you can hear everything.
Yeah.
It's not like a traditional film whereby you would just hear the relevant dialogue and everything else would be, you know, dialed down.
Yeah.
He hears everything as it would have been. And it's sort of horrendous.
Yep.
It's like what madness would sound like.
Yeah, it's just that noise sound. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't pick up or concentrate on any one thing because there's just so much noise happening at you at the same time.
Yeah.
And it can be just maddening sometimes. Like, even like sometimes I'm lying down and the television is too loud and I've got to mute it, and it's like, oh, that's such a relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sound design in this is it didn't work for me entirely, just because sometimes I didn't understand what people were saying. Mm-hmm. It definitely made me feel something.
Yeah.
So it's successful in that regard.
Yeah.
And not least in that scene, like you say, I think that's probably the first time that I noticed that there was something funky going on with the sound. Was in that pizza scene, the restaurant scene, and that's when he finds out. Just imagine all you've ever eaten is
soggy milk bread.
I mean, sugar's pretty fucking great.
Yeah,
but he's
agreed.
had sugar on bread and cockroaches for his entire life, and now all of a sudden he's getting a pizza with cheese and just grease and maybe a pepperoni or something. I don't know.
Hell yeah!
Just can you imagine what's going on in your mouth when you're eating a pizza for the first time?
Party of flavour.
Yeah.
It didn't even look like a very appetizing pizza.
It looked like shit. It looked like the worst fucking pizza on the planet. But it's certainly the best thing that's ever been in his mouth.
Oh, did you have to?
I didn't say anything, did I?
At least it's not me that's bringing down the tone this time.
I didn't say anything. If your brain's going to a certain area, then that's your problem.
Oh, that's on me, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's on you and the listeners.
But yeah, his first day out in the world, and he gets lucky with a Sally Army lady.
Yeah. People are just dropping their pants for this guy all over the gaff. What is going on? It's just such a bizarre movie, isn't it? Like, it's just obviously when I was watching it, I was thinking, yeah, this is strange and odd, but sort of enjoying the journey. Enjoying might be the wrong word. But it's just bizarre. Nobody acts like a real human being in this, I don't think. But at the same time, exploring very human things. It's odd. It feels abstract. It
feels like they sort of explore the entire gamut of human experience during an hour and 50 minutes. But yeah, I get the impression that was very much intentional. Like Rolf de Heer obviously spent, I think, close to a decade writing this movie. He kept coming back to it every so often and adding bits and refining it. And it was about a decade in before he was able to actually make the film. But he's sort of gone on record and said he has taken snippets from things he's witnessed, experienced, and popped them straight into the script with no tweaks. And the one example he sort of went straight to was, I think it's just after Bubby gets out for the second time and is walking down the street and a woman's screaming because somebody's stolen her purse, and a man in a wheelchair kind of comes around the corner and he's the thief. That's something Rolf de Heer saw and was just like, how weird.
Yeah.
So he included it in the movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
As a kind of a bizarre scene that you just wouldn't expect to see.
Yeah, he thought it was like visually odd.
Yeah.
So he included a lot of stuff like that.
It's this whole, do you know what I kept thinking while we were watching this film as well? Like I thought about Forrest Gump while we were watching it. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but I did. It felt like
it's an odyssey.
Yeah, just because all of these things happen and it's so like odd, and I mean, it's not to the level of Forrest Gump when he goes on a big run and he meets the president and he does a war and he does his best at table tennis and he invents a drink or whatever he fucking does in that movie.
Says something about chocolates. I don't know.
Yeah. Is he Willy Wonka as well?
Oh, maybe. I didn't watch Wonka, so I'm unaware of the origin story. Perhaps it was Forrest Gump all along.
I think so. I think that's canon. I was thinking when I was watching this, like, bloody hell, like, you've really got to be paying attention to this. Because even, like, I really try and concentrate on movies really, really hard, but my brain always wanders a little bit and I have to sort of get myself back in it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a couple of times that happened during this movie, but only for like 4 or 5 seconds. My brain just, and I look back and I'm like, oh, who are these people? This is a new situation. Who are these people? He's left the band now, I guess, and he's talking to a bloke about existentialism.
Well, we haven't talked about the band. It does move at a breakneck pace. You're right.
But yeah,
once he's out of their house anyway.
That's my point. It just, all of these experiences are just fucking thrown at him, and it's this real journey. This odyssey is what you said. It felt similar to me in a way in terms of the journey that the character goes on as like Love Exposure, like that kind of. It's a much longer movie.
I still haven't seen that,
and that has its own controversial scenes itself. But it feels similar in the way that you're just kind of going on this route, and it's at the end of the movie you're just like, wow, like this thing has happened at me. What an
I love that
movie.
feeling though.
I think we should watch Love Exposure.
Yeah, sure. I'm up for it.
It's fucking long.
I'll put half a day aside.
Jesus Christ, that's a long fucking movie. But it's worth it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the band, because there are so many moments during this film where he gravitates towards music. And I sort of love that. Like wherever he was, whenever he heard music, he would sort of, I don't know, it was like he was on autopilot. He would always gravitate towards the music.
Yep.
And a lot of it was fortuitous, but do you think that's because he had sort of severe social deficits and that was a way of communicating? Because it does become kind of a way for him to communicate, doesn't it?
The music?
Yeah, just music in general.
I guess so, yeah. What I got from his... I'm not sure I understood why his fascination with music. I guess he was just drawn to it because...
He'd never heard any.
Interesting, and just why do any of us like music, you know? But
it's
certainly
universal as well.
Yeah, and he'd never heard such sounds before. But yeah, certainly when he joins the band, I feel like it was a way of processing certain things.
Okay, I like that.
I noticed the looks of anger on his face, and because he can't express himself fully, doesn't have the vocabulary
or the emotional skills,
or just even really understanding to process certain things. I feel like doing that through art was his way of dealing with everything that he's gone through. So maybe that was why he was drawn to it to a certain degree, because he maybe just didn't quite understand what it was, but maybe on some level thought, this is, for me, this is how I get through this. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it.
I don't know. I think the same could be true of like most artists.
Yeah. Yeah, any decent art, I suppose, is born from some processing of some kind of emotion,
Yeah.
whether that be, positive or negative. Is kind of irrelevant, really. But yeah, I suppose that's what it is. Yeah. Even this movie, like, what shit did the fucking director go through to have made this movie?
Well, he claims to be perfectly normal.
Can we get that man a therapist, please?
Well, he doesn't need one. He made this movie and now he's fine.
He's purged, yes.
He exorcised all his demons.
Yeah, well, let's hope. I haven't seen any of his other movies, so... Didn't he direct a Star Wars?
Huh?
Did he do a Star Wars?
Did he?
Oh, no, I'm joking.
No.
Can you imagine?
No.
George Lucas on the phone to him in the 90s. Yeah, I really want you to direct the prequel trilogy.
That would have gone very differently.
Yeah.
Although...
Might have been better, though.
Yeah. I mean, there would have been more incest.
True.
But that's not in keeping with the Star Wars franchise.
But probably less Jar Jar Binks.
Ooh. Now you're selling it.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
We're gonna trade Jar Jar Binks for some
Bubby.
incest.
Oh my god.
Okay, put Bubby in the Star Wars prequels in a Jar Jar. Get Topher Grace on the line. Get him to edit in Bubby.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
What universe do we have to get to for that to be a reality?
There is a reality somewhere where Nicholas Hope is playing Jar Jar Binks, and it's great as Bubby.
So he has a lot of experiences out in the world.
Too many.
I love how they're presented, though, because a lot of people do sort of take him under their wing, and then when they realise he's a bit of a liability, kind of kick him to the curb. And he's misunderstood, he gets in trouble, he's literally physically assaulted, sexually assaulted in prison, which seemed to be set up by one of the guards.
Yep.
Which was horrendous. You could sort of see his soul leaving his body. That was horrible to watch. To the sound of bagpipes as well, as if it's not punishment enough. You've got bagpipes.
The worst thing that happened to him that day was the bagpipes.
I mean, I didn't say it. But yeah, like I kind of love that it's there's some sort of not neutrality but balance. Like the world is a shitty place, but it's also a wonderful place.
Yep.
So the film kind of shows you the full breadth
spectrum
of what humans go through. Not everybody, obviously, but the extremes.
Yeah.
Some people are good, some people are bad. Most people have an element of both.
Yeah.
And I think that's displayed pretty well, actually.
I think so. I think when I said I feel like this movie is abstract, for me, it's because it feels like it's condensing a lot of an entire life's experience, perhaps, into this short period of time, undisclosed amount of time.
He's got to fit 35 years in.
Yeah. But you said something earlier that some people take him under his wing. And I didn't really feel that with anybody that
Did you not?
I felt that everyone wanted something from him.
Okay.
I felt like everyone he met, maybe save for the random factory manager that was talking about...
That was playing the organ in a church?
What? Church organ? What? I missed this. What? I don't remember that.
So Bobby gets out of prison and he hears church organ and gravitates towards the music.
Got you, yeah.
And then the guy playing it is just like, come follow me. And then all of a sudden they're in this, I don't know, some sort of plant.
Got you. You see where I said earlier where
you drifted.
I drifted for 4 seconds? That was an example. Because I thought the movie was going to end at that point in the prison.
Oh God, that would have been a downbeat ending.
It would have been, but I was expecting a downbeat ending.
Okay.
And he gets out of the prison and he's standing there and he hears the music.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. And then I zoned out for a few seconds and then I came back and he's standing in the factory with the machinery. I'm like, what the fuck? How did he get here?
You can't even blink during this film, Dan.
It's insane.
You'll miss something.
So much happens at him, but I don't know, maybe that character, we didn't really hear enough from that character for me to determine what I thought his motives might be, but certainly everyone else in the movie, the band, Angel, like they all kind of take advantage of him and try to manipulate him in some way.
Do you think Angel takes advantage of him?
She does a weird thing when she shows him her breasts and she's like, we'll keep it our little secret, right? I think that's a bit weird.
It's not ideal, but he's a grown man.
He's a grown man. True.
It's odd.
He's a grown... I guess, for me, like, I see him as a child, that character. So I think that's why I felt uncomfortable with that.
Okay. I mean, look, I'm not saying it wasn't uncomfortable,
Mm.
but especially to her, she's only just met him.
Yeah.
Did you notice that it was Angel? So when obviously, God, there's so much we can't touch on everything.
No.
But I see it as the band sort of taking him under their wing because they have nothing to gain from him initially. They sort of rescue him after he's been kicked out of that convertible in the middle of the road, and they bring him into the truck.
Yeah.
And he just ends up sort of roadieing for them, and then going to steal money for them. But they decide to be altruistic and not grass him up to the police once they found out he was the cling wrap killer.
Altruistic's an interesting word.
You think that was for selfish reasons?
I question why they picked him up in the first place.
Okay.
Maybe just a drinking buddy. We need some more beer. I don't know. When they found out that he was the cling wrap killer, someone mentioned, "Oh, there's a £50,000 reward," and they didn't shop him, so there's something to explore there.
Yeah.
But they do accept the money that he steals for them. Later on in the movie, he becomes the centerpiece of the band, oddly.
Well, kind of by accident, because
Completely.
he pisses off at that point and then finds them again.
Yeah.
Because he hears them in a club or some sort of bar.
Yeah.
And he just sort of wanders up on stage and quite fortuitously ends up being the star attraction.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. Because the one time we see them attempt to put on a gig earlier on in the film, there are 0 people that show up.
Yeah.
So, yes, I guess they see him at that point as something that will benefit them.
I think, they see him as a money chicken.
That's money cow? Cash cow?
Yeah, cash
a
cow.
Money
That's
chicken.
it, yeah. That's the phrase. Yeah, I very much think that they see him as their passport to the big time.
At that point, yeah. But prior to that, I think they just
I think they're thinking about the reward.
But they didn't know that.
They did.
When they picked him up, they didn't.
Not initially, they didn't, no. But it didn't take them long to realise that. And they didn't grass him up to the police. Maybe should have.
Oh.
I can't necessarily say that they definitely had bad intentions. But
I don't think they did.
I kind of think they did. I kind of think that they were more interested in their own how they would benefit than anything else.
Okay, agree to disagree.
Maybe that says more about me than this film. I don't know.
I've got a way more optimistic reading of them.
Okay, that's interesting. Usually it's me that's more optimistic. I think it's just me being beaten down by this film.
Maybe.
I'm just like, fuck everyone in this movie.
But when
set fire to everybody.
No, when the band, obviously they go their separate ways, and the band leave Bubby with one of their rich friends, and the rich friend kind of tarts him up with the hat and everything, and they go to the restaurant.
Yeah.
The woman that he approaches at the neighbouring table is Angel.
Is it?
Yes, and she thinks that he's mocking her.
Do you know? I thought it was, but then I just sort of forgot about it.
Because a million other things happened.
Yeah, and I'm bad with faces. You know this. Yeah, what was the deal there, by the way? Like, I thought because the band before that were discussing, we could give him up. There's a $50,000 reward, and then they're just like, no, we'll just dump him in a foyer of this rich person's house, and then he's going to put on him a white suit and a hat.
He's going to end up looking like the man from Del Monte.
What was going on there?
I don't know.
And then they went out for dinner.
Yeah.
And he sees her,
mm-hmm.
and he approaches her, and she's like, I guess the most realistic human response maybe is, "What the fuck are you doing? Get out of my face."
Yeah. It's a strange interaction, much like all of the others in this movie. But I just think it's interesting that she keeps popping up as though they're sort of like destined to meet, you could say.
I guess so. And I mean, her name is Angel. There is a lot of religious shit going on in this movie. Like,
yeah,
it's not very subtle, as you said earlier. And even her parents as well are using religion to control her or make her feel a certain way, like feel bad about herself. I guess as a means of
her own dad calls her a fat slut.
Yeah.
These are demonic human beings.
Yeah. But using that.
Hiding under the guise of religion.
Yeah.
As is often the case.
Yeah.
Interpreting the Bible to suit their own ends.
Yeah, which is why like the more you see from the human characters in this movie, I feel like it's criticising the way that we as a species will use certain things to try and control them so they don't do things that you don't agree with. Less so than religion being the bad thing itself. It's more, I guess, like it's with anything.
It's humans.
Really. It's humans. We're like, nothing is bad. It's what we do with the thing that's bad.
Yeah, agreed. Now we're sort of getting to the back end of the film. So let's talk about the climax, or the third act at least. So when he finally does meet Angel, it comes to light that she's I don't know what kind of a nurse, like a live-in...
It's a care worker.
Yeah. And she's looking after a bunch of adults with cerebral palsy, who were real people with cerebral palsy and not actors. And it turns out that Bubby can tell what they're saying.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Well, how is my first question. I don't know what we were trying to say by that, really. He can understand this person that can't really talk, makes noises. He can interpret what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
What was the purpose of that?
So this is an extension of why I have a more positive read of the band. I think this whole film is about Bobby finding his family. It's about this person finding his people.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't belong anywhere and he doesn't fit in anywhere. But he meets these people who are all different, like him, have difficulty with communication, much like he does, are not socially integrated into society like he isn't. And it's him finding his tribe, I guess.
Maybe I was trying to interpret those scenes a little too literally.
Maybe.
That does make sense.
Like the scene where, so obviously Rachel is the main one who he quickly realizes she's sort of falling in love with him.
Yeah.
The scene where he's like, he picks her up and she's crying and he starts crying and he's cradling her. Oh my God, does that not make you feel a thing? Like, did that make you do an emotion? You'd have to be hard-hearted, surely.
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, I feel like it was interesting because it was the character I felt learning about empathy. And I don't know, he's obviously, throughout this movie, he's learning about everything, about the world, about himself, about emotions, about what's right and what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in that scene is really where it's drilled into him about other people's pain and suffering. And he can relate, and someone that he relates to, I guess, is going through this thing and he's sad for her.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty impactful. Yeah. For sure.
Ultimately, he's really sad for Rachel.
Yeah.
Because he can't return her feelings. But I also think it's really interesting that, you're right. The film ultimately is about him kind of figuring out who he is as an autonomous person, because he's never had that before. And it's not until the final third of the film that he actually starts saying, to call them sentences is a stretch, but he starts saying stuff that isn't just verbatim what he's heard somebody else say.
Yeah.
He actually starts communicating on his own.
But it's even like, it's very clever because he used, these phrases keep coming up over and over again, but he begins to he's using the same phrases, but they fit more contextually with what is, rather than random thoughts and random things that he's saying. They kind of fit. Like, I forget what he says about the money. Whenever someone asks for some money and he understands how legal tender works, he gives them money, but there's a phrase that he uses that, I don't know, I feel like he's definitely learning how to communicate more and more, and I'm fascinated to see how, as time moves on, how he develops.
Yeah. And also, I think one of my absolute favorite scenes happens really close to the end, actually. And it's when that guy is, I don't know where they are, actually. It looks like some sort of empty chapel. And that guy's stood kind of further away from him. And he's giving Bobby like a speed run of all the different religions and the wars that have resulted from disagreements over who believes what and how bullshit it is, which is sort of an extension of what the guy was saying to him in the plant about it's our duty to think God out of existence, which is such a good line.
It's a really good line, which is repeated as well, that he repeats that to Angel's parents. Does he call God a cunt? I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
He calls a lot of people a cunt in this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's worth a star right there.
But yeah, that and the scene, obviously, when that guy's giving him the spiel about we never really exist, like we're not really alive, we're just molecules, and
Yep.
you know, we just change state, and just the camera is pulling away from them really, really slowly,
Yeah.
and they're becoming smaller and less significant to the picture. And it seems like such an obvious thing, but it's so reflective of what he's saying.
Yeah.
That I think it's done really nicely.
And it goes on forever as well. It goes on for ages,
But it's not boring. Like, I was absorbed in everything that he was saying.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Me too.
So, we're at the end.
Thank fuck for that.
I'm so keen to know what you thought about this film as a whole, because we haven't talked about it until now.
So what do I think about this?
Yeah,
film?
I want to hear your thoughts. Obviously, you've already said you didn't expect it to have yeah, it is a happy ending. I was so reluctant then to call it a happy ending, but it is. He gets a happy ending. It's quite heartwarming and wholesome at the end.
Yeah. The serial killer has a family.
He's agreed not to do any more murders.
I won't cling film anymore.
Yes.
I promise. Yeah, I mean, so what did I think about the ending, or what did I think about the film as a whole?
Both.
I thought this film was an interesting watch. I'm not going to be watching it again.
Ever?
Probably not.
Okay.
I don't imagine that this film is ever going to leave my brain. So I don't know. Maybe
something.
Maybe in 30 years I'll forget that I've seen it, and you'll put it on and be like, and then it will come back to me. I think, oh, fucker. It was really well made. It was really interesting. It was a really interesting experiment. I thought it really worked for me in terms of immersing me into the story and his perspective. And I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Certain things I think we could have done without.
Yeah.
Certain things were hard to watch, but were part of the fabric of the story and were necessary. It was a difficult watch. I'm glad I've watched it. I thought it was really well made. I thought it was
You're being so diplomatic.
I thought it was a good film.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a very good film.
Okay.
Didn't enjoy it very much.
Okay.
But it immersed me. Like I'm so like, I'm having trouble answering this question. I don't really know how I feel about it, if I'm being honest.
It's interesting to me because if you look online, obviously there is a lot of love for this film amongst the small number of people who've actually seen it. There are kind of cult movie screenings of it across the world. Like certain places have really embraced it. I think the director said it was like number 2 in Norway that whole year.
93.
Which you said presumably was just behind Jurassic Park, which is insane. The Norwegians are not all right. Dinosaurs and Bubby. What a year 1993 was.
Yeah. Fascinating. We should go to Norway.
But from what I've seen online, people seem to fall into one of two camps, and that's people who detest it and want to scrub it from their memory immediately, and people who really embrace it and are really touched by Bubby's journey and find it joyous when he finds his people, and he, like the scenes of him performing with the band, that really sort of gets them in the feels, as the kids would say. And I'm definitely in that camp. So it's curious to me that you're sort of hovering more around the middle, because that's rare. I
think it's because some of it, I thought it was, as I say, go back, really well made film. Really appreciated it for that. The journey that it took me on was, and just the exploration of nature versus nurture and humanity as a whole, and exploring why humans take certain actions and things that they do. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I can understand why you would have a visceral hatred for this movie.
Yeah.
I get it. There's sometimes where I read reviews and I think, what were you talking about? But I get it. This may not be your cup of tea.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
It's totally understandable. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of in the middle. I'm sort of like, I don't know. It was good, but I don't want to watch it again.
You're fence sitting.
No, honestly, I just don't really know how I feel about it, and I don't want to lie.
No,
I don't want to
that's...
say, oh, it was great or I fucking hated it. I just don't really know. I don't think I've had enough time to process it.
I think
And I
that's
don't
understandable because it's a lot.
And I don't want any more time to process it. I feel
Okay.
like this is more maybe one of those films that you should really not try to intellectualize. Fucking irony. Shouldn't think about it too much. Maybe just understand how it makes you feel, and maybe that's my problem. Is I'm maybe just thinking about it a bit too much, but I don't want to think about it anymore. So
I suspect that if we'd watched this under any other circumstances than for the podcast, you'd have disliked it.
do you reckon?
I do. I think because the podcast sort of forces us to look a bit deeper and find pros and cons, that you maybe found more pros than you would have done on a more casual viewing.
Yeah, maybe. Because I don't want to just shit on a movie. I don't mind doing that for the Patreon reviews when it's like 5 or 10 minutes.
if it's Expendables 4.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, and sometimes on the longer ones, if it's a truly terrible movie. But I think this is like it's a really well made movie.
And it's a story I've never seen before.
Yeah, and it does things I've never seen before. It uses techniques that I've never seen or thought about before. So I respect it massively. Don't agree with all of the decisions that were made.
Yeah, less animal abuse and less groping would have been ideal.
It's a weird one. Fucking, I don't know. It was all right.
This might be the most confused you've ever been at the end of a show.
Yeah, and I'm fucking exhausted.
Well, I guess that's a wrap then. We've got nothing else to say but, Christ, kid, you're a weirdo.
That's true. We've made it to the end of Bad Boy Bubby. Thank fuck. I don't need to think about that anymore. We move on to another movie next week.
Yeah.
Episode 4 of our Trap season. Still your season. So what's next?
We're revisiting JC.
Jesus Christ.
Our Jesus Christ, our personal Jesus.
Our Lord and Saviour.
As Depeche Mode said. We're doing Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh,